All right, this is going to be the basics of how to kind of use 3D Element. So we've already installed it as a plugin into After Effects. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our footage and we'll just do a camera track on it. And I'm just going to use this one of the table here. I've got some rotation, perspective changes, etc. So I've done my 3D camera track. I'm going to find a spot that looks pretty flush. That looks pretty good there. I'll right click and I'm going to create a solid and a camera. Now, this is really just a preference, but with the track solid, I really like putting a grid on it. And I don't know, I just, rather than seeing a big bright colored thing, I kind of like the grid there. And then from that track solid, of course, I can adjust my rotation. And, you know, if I wanted to change it a little bit, I could scale it up as well. But right now, this is just kind of a way to make sure that my track looks good, which I'm pretty happy with there. Okay, now this is only going to be used as a reference. We're not going to pre-comp it or anything like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to use a solid to create our 3D element. So we're going to make a new solid, and again, doesn't matter the color, and we are going to go up to our effects, and we're going to apply element. So this is element 3D. So we're going to drag it on there, and nothing will happen. Over here, we need to get into our scene setup. Okay, so with our scene setup, we're going to open up a window here, which is very similar to any type of a 3D window, if you've ever used that before. So there are tons of packs that we have available on the Common Drive that you can install. By default, you get the starter pack. There's like 40 of them or something. So I'm just going to take the, I don't know, the chessboard. So I'll drag that in. Now I can click and drag around to see that it's 3D, and of course I can zoom in and I have no loss of quality, which is nice. Now over here, I mean, if I need to, I can scale it up in this view. Okay, so this is my scale tool, and I can, if I go right there where all the whole cube in the middle it'll actually scale it proportionately. Likewise, I could do it just in the Y direction or in the X direction or whatever, but I don't want to do that. This is rotating the view that I'm looking at, but I could also rotate the board itself in whatever view I'm already in. Okay, so whatever, you play around with that. Now, for those of you that have done some 3D modeling in the past, you may actually be pretty good at lighting and materials and stuff. At a very basic level, when you click on your board here, you can see up here in the scene that you have 3 sections or 3 items. So you can see there's the actual one set of the chess pieces, the other set, and then the board. So right now they have this kind of wood finish. You got the dark and the light. I'm going to go up to the board here, and I'm going to go over to my presets, and I actually have 22 preset materials that I can use. Now we actually have more in the Common Drive, but for now this is a good start. So let's just say I want to have this as chrome. So there I get a chrome set, and then maybe on the other set we'll do gold. We kind of have a shiny set there. Okay, so once I have done my 3D modeling and brought in my objects here, I'm happy with that. I'm going to click OK. All right, so you can see that it's going to come in at a very, very strange angle, not really what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up group 1. Now you can have multiple groups or objects, but we're pretty much going to stick with group 1. So I'm going to open up group 1, and there's a few items in here that I'm going to really play around with. So number 1, if I go to my particle replicator, this is where I can actually I could actually make multiple versions of the same thing. But this is where you can do some basic positioning of your object. Okay, so I'm going to try to line it up on that grid there. There's, my Z-axis. The rotation here, this is where you can kind of rotate it to get it looking the way you want. And it's going to take a little bit of practice to get exactly how you want it. You have to understand, this is still a 2D scene. We're just trying to trick the computer into thinking that it's 3D. So you do what you can. I can't physically put it on the table, but hopefully I can get it aligned in a way that kind of looks okay. So, that's, I don't know, it's not perfect, but good enough for this exercise. Now, that's your rotation. Okay, so that's position and rotation, which is under the particle replicator. If I go to my shape options, I'm probably not going to use that. Probably not going to use the replicator effects. If you're looking for scale, you kind of have to dig around a little bit. And I believe it's under particle look. So under particle look, I can actually scale it up like that to get whatever size that I want. And then again, I could scale it kind of in one direction if I wanted to. So all these settings are kind of similar in the actual scene setup, but here I'm controlling them within After Effects. So let's just say I'm happy with that. Now, that does not look good in terms of lighting. It doesn't look realistic, but at least it's kind of in a position that looks like it could be sitting on the table. Okay, so then what you're going to do is, I'm just going to minimize all these just so you can kind of get focus there. Under Group Utilities, you're going to create a group null. Okay, so I'm going to create a group null, and it just creates, it's similar to the nulls we've talked about. It's called a group null. Just deal with it as that. We are going to take the position of this track solid. Okay, so remember the track solid we made when we applied a grid to it. We're going to take the position. So I'm going to take the position, I'm going to copy that value, and then I'm going to apply it to the group null position as well. So if I go over to position and I paste it, it just attaches it more or less to that same spot. So now by doing that, I have my board and it is locked on. So now when I press play, you can see the board's locked on. Now, based on the sizing that I did already, you can see it's shrunk down, and that just has to do with the way the null has been positioned. So what I need to do at this point is I can go back to the solid that contains that 3D element, and I can just go back to adjusting things, right? So if I go to the particle look, I may want to scale that up a little bit. You know, if you still see the grid, you can just hide the grid. And I may have to rotate it a little bit, so I can go into my particle rotation and not that one, probably the Z maybe, nope. There we go, something like that. So now in theory, depending on how well you did with your camera track, you should have a 3D object that now appears in your project. And again, the next level of this, and it's not something I'm an expert at by any means, is really adjusting the lighting and the look to make it match the scene. And that'll be something that some of you guys will really go above and beyond with.